You've been praying every single day, maybe every single hour. You've whispered those words in the dark when nobody else was listening. You've cried them out loud when the pain became too much to hold inside. You've bargained, you've begged, you've asked with everything you have left in you. And yet, here you are, still waiting, still wondering, still asking yourself if any of this even matters. Do prayers really solve everything? Because right now, looking at your life, it doesn't feel like it. It feels like you're shouting into an empty sky, and the silence is louder than any answer you ever hoped to hear. But what if I told you that the silence isn't emptiness? What if the waiting isn't rejection? What if everything you've been going through, every unanswered prayer, every moment you felt abandoned, was actually God preparing you for something you're not even ready to understand yet? Stay with me, because what I'm about to share with you will change the way you see every prayer you've ever prayed, every tear you've ever cried, and every moment you thought God forgot your name. If you're still here, if something inside you is telling you not to scroll away, that's not an accident. That's the first sign. Hit that like button right now, not for me, but as a statement to yourself that you're ready to hear what you need to hear. Subscribe to this channel if you want truth that cuts through the noise, truth that doesn't sugarcoat your pain but walks you through it. And share this with someone who's been praying in secret, someone who's losing hope, someone who needs to know they're not alone in this battle. Do it now, because the person who needs this message might be one click away from giving up. Let me be real with you. We've been sold a version of prayer that sounds like a vending machine. Put in your request, press the button, get your blessing. And when that blessing doesn't show up wrapped in the package you expected, when the door doesn't open, when the person doesn't change, when the money doesn't come, when the sickness doesn't leave, we start to believe that prayer doesn't work. We start to think we're doing something wrong. We start to wonder if God even cares. But here's what nobody wants to tell you because it's uncomfortable, because it doesn't fit into a neat little sermon, because it requires you to sit with the tension and the mystery. Prayer isn't a transaction. Prayer is a conversation. And in any real conversation, sometimes the most powerful response isn't words. Sometimes it's what happens in the silence. You know what breaks my heart? It's seeing people walk away from their faith, not because God failed them, but because they were taught to measure God's love by their circumstances. They were taught that if they prayed hard enough, believed strong enough, quoted enough scriptures, that life would bend to their will. And when life hit them harder than their prayers seemed to protect them, they assumed God wasn't listening. But what if God's been listening the entire time? What if the answer has been coming, but not in the language you expected? What if God's been speaking, and you've been looking for thunder when He's been whispering in the wind? There are 3 unmistakable signs that God is speaking to you instead of just answering your prayers the way you demanded. 3 signs that will shift your entire perspective if you're brave enough to recognize them. And I promise you, by the end of this, you'll see your unanswered prayers in a completely different light. You'll understand why some doors stayed closed. You'll know why some people walked away. You'll realize why the breakthrough didn't come when you wanted it. But you need to stay until the end, because the 3rd sign is the one most people miss, and it's the one that changes everything. The first sign that God is speaking instead of just solving your problem is this. Your heart is changing even when your situation isn't. Listen carefully. You've been praying for your circumstances to shift. You've been praying for that job, that relationship, that healing, that financial miracle. And nothing seems to be moving. The situation looks the same. The problem is still there. The person hasn't changed. But if you're honest with yourself, if you look deep inside, something in you is different. You're not the same person who started praying. You're stronger, even though you don't feel strong. You're wiser, Even though the lesson hurt like hell, you're more compassionate, more patient, more aware of what really matters. That's not a coincidence. That's God working on the inside, because He knows the outside will follow. See, we want God to change our situation, but God wants to change us. We want comfort, but God wants character. We want the shortcut, but God's building something in us that can't be microwaved. And I know that's hard to hear when you're in pain. I know that sounds like some motivational poster nonsense when you're struggling to pay your bills, when you're watching someone you love suffer, when you're battling something that feels like it's going to destroy you. But here's the truth that will set you free if you let it. If God gave you everything you prayed for without preparing you for it, it would destroy you faster than not having it. The blessing you're asking for requires a version of you that doesn't exist yet, and God loves you too much to give you something you can't sustain. Drop a comment right now and tell me one way your heart is changed through your struggle. Tell me one thing this season has taught you that you couldn't have learned any other way. Be honest. Be raw. Because when you acknowledge your growth, you give God glory for the work He's been doing in the silence, and you give someone else permission to see their own growth too. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. Here's where most people stop listening, because it requires them to let go of control. Your heart changing means you're starting to pray different prayers. You're starting to say things like, "Not my will, but yours." You're starting to surrender the timeline. You're starting to trust the process, even when the process is breaking you. And that terrifies us, doesn't it? Because surrender feels like giving up. Letting go feels like losing. But what if surrender is actually the moment you step into your real power? What if letting go of your plan is the only way to receive God's plan? What if the answer you've been desperate for can only come when you stop choking the life out of your prayers with your need to control the outcome? God's been speaking to you in every moment you chose to keep going when quitting felt easier. He's been speaking in every morning you woke up and decided to try again despite the disappointment. He's been speaking in every person He removed from your life to protect you from a future you couldn't see. He's been speaking in every closed door that redirected you toward the right path. But you've been so focused on what you asked for that you missed what He's been giving you. You've been so loud with your demands that you couldn't hear His whispers of direction. The second sign that God is speaking instead of just fixing your problem is this: you're being positioned, not punished. I need you to hear this because the enemy's greatest weapon is making you believe that your suffering is punishment, that you're being overlooked, that you're not worthy, that you did something wrong and now you're paying for it. That's a lie from the pit of hell, and it's time you stopped believing it. Every delay is not a denial. Every detour is not a dead end. Every closed door is not rejection. Sometimes God is protecting you from what you thought you wanted, because He's preparing you for what you actually need. Think about every person who walked away from your life. You prayed for them to stay. You begged God to change their heart, to bring them back, to restore what was broken, and they left anyway. You felt abandoned, rejected, not good enough. But what if their exit was your exodus? What if God moved them out of the way because they would have blocked your blessing? What if the person you thought was your future was actually your prison, and God loved you enough to break the chains even when you didn't want to be free? Positioning looks like loss until you see what you're being positioned for. You didn't get that job you interviewed for. You felt defeated. You questioned your worth. You wondered why God would let you go through the process just to face rejection. But what if that job would have put you in an environment that slowly killed your spirit? What if that company is about to face a crisis you don't even know about yet? What if God's about to open a door to something better, but you had to let go of the familiar first? Positioning requires movement, and movement sometimes feels like everything is falling apart. But here's what you need to know. If God is moving things around you, He's about to move you into something. The reshuffling isn't random. The chaos isn't purposeless. You're being positioned. Share this video right now with someone who's been feeling overlooked, someone who's been questioning why their prayers seem unanswered, someone who needs to know that their season of waiting is actually a season of preparation. Don't just scroll past this. Be the answer to someone else's prayer today. And here's what positioning looks like in real life. It looks like God increasing your capacity while you're waiting for your opportunity. It looks like Him teaching you patience while you're praying for speed. It looks like Him building your faith while you're asking for proof. It looks like Him strengthening your character while you're begging for comfort. You've been in school and you didn't even realize it. Every test, every trial, every moment you thought you were being buried, you were actually being planted. And planted things don't grow overnight. They grow in the dark. They grow in the dirt. They grow when nobody's watching. But when they break through the surface, when they finally bloom, everyone sees the flower and forgets about the process that made it possible. God's been positioning you in the secret place. He's been whispering to you when the world went silent. He's been holding you together when you felt like you were falling apart. He's been strategically placing people, opportunities, and lessons in your path while you've been focused on what's not happening. And the beautiful thing about positioning is that when the moment comes, when the door opens, when the opportunity presents itself, you won't have to force it. You won't have to beg for it. You won't have to convince anyone of your worth. You'll be ready. You'll be equipped. You'll step into it like you were made for it, because you were. And all those prayers you thought went unanswered were actually being answered in ways you couldn't see, preparing you for a moment you couldn't imagine. But let me tell you about the third sign. And this one will break you open if you let it. This one will bring you to your knees in gratitude or rebellion, depending on whether you're ready to receive it. The third sign that God is speaking instead of just solving your problems is this. You're being trusted with a testimony. Stay with me now, because this is where everything comes together. This is where your pain meets your purpose. This is where your mess becomes your message. God hasn't answered your prayer the way you wanted because He's writing a story through your life that's bigger than your temporary comfort. He's allowing you to walk through something that's going to set somebody else free. He's trusting you with a test that will become a testimony that changes lives. And I know what you're thinking. I don't want to be a testimony. I don't want to inspire people with my pain. I just want the pain to stop. I just want my prayers answered. I just want my life to work. I hear you. I see you. But what if your suffering isn't just about you? What if the reason you're going through this is because someone watching your life needs to see that it's possible to survive what they're facing? What if your strength in the storm is the lighthouse that guides someone else home? What if your refusal to quit is the permission someone else needs to keep fighting? God doesn't waste pain. He redeems it. He transforms it. He uses it. And the fact that you're still here, still fighting, still believing despite everything that's tried to break you, that's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's divine assignment. You've been trusted with this test because God knows you can carry it. Not because you're strong, but because He's making you strong through it. Not because you have all the answers, but because you're willing to keep asking the questions. Not because your faith is perfect, but because your faith is real. Leave a comment right now and declare what you're trusting God for, even when you can't see it yet. Write it down. Speak it into existence. Let your words be a seed of faith that takes root not just in your heart, but in the hearts of everyone who reads it. Your testimony starts before the victory. It starts in the middle of the battle, when you decide to keep believing anyway. Every prophet, every leader, every person God used to change the world had to walk through their own wilderness first. They had to face their giants. They had to sit in their confusion. They had to wrestle with unanswered questions. They had to learn that God's timing isn't late, it's perfect. They had to discover that God's ways aren't cruel, they're intentional. They had to accept that God's plan isn't always comfortable, but it's always for their good. And when they came out on the other side, when they looked back at what they survived, they realized that their prayer wasn't unanswered. It was being answered in a way that was bigger than they could ask or imagine. It was being answered in a way that didn't just change their life, but changed the lives of everyone they would touch. So let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about this. What if the prayer you think God hasn't answered is actually the prayer He's answering right now by transforming who you are? What if the miracle you've been waiting for is you? What if the breakthrough isn't coming because you are the breakthrough? What if everything you've been through has been preparing you to walk into rooms you never dreamed you'd enter? To speak words that heal wounds you never knew existed? To become the answer to prayers that haven't even been prayed yet? You are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. You are being positioned. You are being trusted with something sacred. Your prayers have not fallen on deaf ears. They've been heard by a God who loves you too much to give you what you want when He knows what you need. They've been received by a Father who sees the whole picture when you can only see the frame. They've been answered by a Creator who is more interested in your transformation than your temporary comfort. And here's what I need you to understand before we go any further. God is not a genie. He's not a cosmic butler waiting to fulfill your wish list. He's not a vending machine dispensing blessings based on how many times you hit the right buttons. He is God, sovereign, all-knowing, all-powerful, and His love for you is so deep, so vast, so incomprehensible that He will allow you to go through temporary pain to save you from permanent destruction. He will let you face battles that make you stronger instead of granting you peace that makes you weaker. He will say no to what you want so He can say yes to what you need. If you've made it this far, you're not here by accident. Something in you is waking up. Something in you is recognizing the truth. Don't you dare stop this video now. We're about to reach the revelation I promised you, the one that ties everything together, the one that will shift your perspective forever. But before we get there, I need you to do something. I need you to make a decision right now. Are you going to keep living like a victim of your circumstances, or are you going to start living like the overcomer God's called you to be? Are you going to keep questioning God's love based on your temporary situation? Or are you going to trust His heart even when you can't see His hand? Comment your decision below. Say it out loud. Make it real. Here's what religion won't tell you because it's too raw, too real, too uncomfortable. Sometimes the answer to your prayer is God saying, I have something better, but you have to let go of your version first. Sometimes the answer is, not yet, because I'm still working on you and the situation. Sometimes the answer is, no, Because I'm protecting you from something you can't see. And sometimes the most powerful answer is silence, because God's teaching you to trust Him without needing constant confirmation, to walk by faith and not by sight, to believe in His goodness even when your circumstances scream otherwise. You want to know the real question? It's not, do prayers solve everything? The real question is, are you willing to trust God when your prayers don't solve things the way you expected? Are you willing to worship Him in the waiting? Are you willing to praise Him in the process? Are you willing to believe He's good even when life isn't? Because that's where real faith is born, not in the answered prayers, but in the unanswered ones, not in the miracles you see, but in the trust you build when you can't see anything. Not in the comfort, but in the character that's formed through the chaos. Let me tell you what's going to happen if you embrace this truth. If you stop treating prayer like a transaction and start treating it like a relationship, your entire life will shift. You'll stop being obsessed with getting what you want and start being consumed with becoming who you're meant to be. You'll stop measuring God's faithfulness by your circumstances and start measuring it by His character. You'll stop living disappointed and start living expectant, knowing that even in the silence, even in the waiting, even in the pain, God is working all things together for your good. Your prayers are solving things, just not in the way you thought. They're solving your pride by teaching you humility. They're solving your fear by building your faith. They're solving your impatience by developing your endurance. They're solving your shallow understanding of love by showing you what real love looks like. Love that doesn't give you everything you want. Love that gives you everything you need. Love that says no when yes would harm you. Love that allows pain when pain produces perseverance. Love that trusts you with tests that will become testimonies. And here's the revelation I promised you, the one you've been waiting for. Are you ready? Every single prayer you've ever prayed has been heard. Every single tear you've cried has been collected. Every single moment you felt alone, God was there. But here's what changes everything. God's not just answering your prayers. He's answering the prayers you don't even know how to pray yet. He's answering the prayers of your future self, the one who's going to look back at this season and say, "Thank God He didn't give me what I wanted when I wanted it. Thank God He closed that door. Thank God He removed that person. Thank God He made me wait. Thank God He said no, because now I see what He was protecting me from. Now I see what He was preparing me for. Now I see that His plan was better than anything I could have imagined." Right now, in this moment, God is answering prayers you haven't even prayed yet. He's setting up divine appointments you don't know you need. He's moving obstacles you can't see. He's positioning people in your path who will change your trajectory. He's orchestrating circumstances that will blow your mind. He's working behind the scenes in ways that will make you fall to your knees in gratitude when you finally see the full picture. But you have to hold on. You have to keep praying. You have to keep believing. You have to keep trusting that the silence isn't abandonment, it's anticipation. The delay isn't denial, it's divine timing. The struggle isn't punishment, it's preparation. Subscribe to this channel if you want more truth that pierces through the religious noise and speaks to your real life. Hit that like button if this message is hitting different, and share this video with someone who's about to give up on their prayers. Someone who needs to hear that their breakthrough is closer than they think. Someone who needs to know that God hasn't forgotten them. Do it right now. Don't wait. Don't scroll away. Be the miracle in someone's life today. So let me bring this home. Let me give you something you can hold on to when the doubts creep back in, when the pain feels like too much, when you're tempted to believe that your prayers don't matter. Here it is. Your prayers are not bouncing off the ceiling. They're building a foundation in the heavens. They're creating a spiritual momentum that's about to manifest in your physical reality. They're shifting things in realms you can't see. They're moving mountains you don't even know exist. They're fighting battles on your behalf while you sleep. They're opening doors you haven't even walked up to yet. They're preparing you for a future so good that if you saw it right now, you wouldn't believe it's yours. Do prayers solve everything? No, prayers don't solve everything the way you want them solved, but prayers do something better. They connect you to the one who solves everything the way it needs to be solved. They align you with the will of the Father, who sees what you can't see, knows what you don't know, and loves you in ways you can't comprehend. Prayers change you. They position you. They prepare you. They protect you. They partner you with the divine. And when you pray with faith, when you pray with surrender, when you pray with trust, you activate a power in your life that doesn't just solve your problems. It transforms your entire existence. The 3 signs are clear. Your heart is changing even when your situation isn't. You're being positioned, not punished. You're being trusted with a testimony. If you can see these signs in your life, then God is speaking. He's been speaking all along. You just had to learn His language. You had to tune your ear to hear Him in the silence. You had to open your eyes to see Him in the struggle. You had to soften your heart to feel Him in the pain. And here's my final word to you. Don't give up on your prayers. Don't give up on God. Don't give up on yourself. The fact that you're still here, still fighting, still believing, that's proof that your story isn't over. That's evidence that your breakthrough is coming. That's confirmation that God hasn't forgotten you. He's just preparing you. He's positioning you. He's about to blow your mind with His faithfulness. But you have to hold on. You have to keep praying. You have to keep trusting. You have to keep believing that the best is yet to come. Comment below and tell me, what's the one thing you're choosing to trust God for even when you can't see it? Write it down, declare it, speak life over your situation, and then come back to this video in 6 months, in a year, and tell me how God showed up. Tell me how the prayer you thought was unanswered was actually being answered in ways you never imagined. Tell me how the pain became your purpose. Tell me how the test became your testimony, because I already know what's about to happen in your life. God's about to move in ways that leave you speechless. He's about to show up in ways that make you weep with gratitude. He's about to answer prayers you forgot you prayed. He's about to fulfill promises you stopped believing in. He's about to remind you why you held on when letting go felt easier. Your prayers are not wasted. Your tears are not ignored. Your faith is not in vain. God is speaking. He's been speaking. And everything you've been through has been preparing you for everything you're about to step into. Hold on. Keep praying. Keep believing. Your breakthrough is closer than you think. And when it comes, when you finally see what God's been doing in the silence, you're going to understand why the wait was worth it. You're going to see why the process was necessary. You're going to know beyond any doubt that your prayers didn't solve everything the way you wanted, but they solved everything the way you needed. And that's the greatest answer of all.